Everybody experiences nostalgia, young, old, Paul Rudd, everybody. That being said, the desire to watch something that you're nostalgic about and you'd be willing to watch either new or old things about it makes nostalgia a very remarkable thing for companies nowadays. People watching something purely because they recognize it from somewhere else is one of the main reasons why a lot of the more original ideas in Hollywood don't really get greenlit or exist that much anymore. It's much safer to just pander to an audience that already exists by constantly remaking and constantly continuing something from back in the day. Although some companies like Cartoon Network tried to double down on it back in the day, trying to keep the interest of older viewers and trying to keep the interest of new viewers with new shows. It's for that reason that Boomerang even existed in the first place. So come along with me as we take a journey to see how this channel left all its potential behind and turned into whatever the fuck this thing is. In the beginning, Boomerang was just a block on Cartoon Network itself that ran for 4 hours and was aimed at baby boomers and people who may just like these cartoons more. Originally airing every weekend, eventually over time the schedule changed and switched up and the time even got reduced by an hour. Not a lot of networks have it, and the ones that do make you have to pay for it, which makes sense because the channel itself doesn't have any ads, just bumpers created by Cartoon Network their damn selves. So it makes sense because they gotta make money off of this shit somehow. Boomerang would stick to the same aesthetic and bumpers up until 2015 or so, when the whole channel got rebranded into what you see today. Now let's get into some of the content that Boomerang would air and some of its bumpers and shit. In the early days, the programming mostly consisted of cartoons from Hanna-Barbera, Ruby Spears, and other companies alike that Turner Broadcasting had the rights to. In the beginning, the programming mostly came from the 50s to the 80s at least. As time went on, they started adding shows from the 90s and even canceled shows from the 2000s after a while. Now, a lot of the programming was segmented into blocks that Boomerang would either air daily or weekly. These blocks are what we're going to get into next.
Today on Boomerang from Cartoon Network.
One of the first blocks was Boomerang, a block that focused on action-adventure shows. This is where you see shows like Johnny Quest, Thundar, The Super Friends, stuff like that. Overall, this was a good block. It's just strange that when newer shows started to come in, they didn't get somebody in to make new bumpers.
What do you call cartoon stars who have become legendary icons? You might call them the kings and queens of cartoons. Well, in an effort to save time, we call them Boomer Royalty. Muttley, do something! Oh, he's going to do something, all right. He's going to be Boomer Royalty. Oh boy, oh boy, oh boy, oh boy. It's Muttley in Boomer Royalty. Weekends from 2 to 4 all month long on Boomerang from Cartoon Network.
Boomer Royalty was a block where they would pick a specific character each weekend and air a little mini marathon for them. This was a fun idea, and in retrospect, it was a really good block. It was sad to see it go in 2012.
You gotta have the look, know the lingo,
Willikers! Wowie, wow, wow!
and drive a sweet ride. If you want to be one of the
Meddlers. Blasted meddling kids. And it would have been mine if it hadn't been for those meddling kids.
Learn from the masters of meddling every weekday afternoon. It's those meddling kids. Monday through Friday at 4 on Boomerang.
Those Meddling Kids is quite possibly my favorite block out of any of these because it's mostly a joke about how back in the day a lot of people tried to copy the Scooby-Doo formula because they thought it would work. This is airing those shows that followed that formula. I fuck with that a lot. I really like this block.
Stop! I'm glad you're all here. I have an important announcement. Every week's a different year right here on Boomerang. No, wait, I'm not done. Come back. Oh, never mind. Saturdays, all your favorite cartoons from a particular year. On Boomerang from Cartoon Network. It's all coming back to you.
Classic cartoon year doesn't have that much information out there about it. But from what I can tell, the block was about showcasing cartoons from a specific year. You might get 1965, 1979, and 1982. They might have gone up by order, they might not have. There isn't a lot of information, and it's really hard for me to tell. But I want to highlight it because it's a pretty interesting idea, and it's kind of sad that it's been lost to time. Well, for the most part anyway. Bumpers will give a channel its personality, and in Boomerang's case, its bumpers are classic, mostly because the bumpers never stuck to one style. Bumpers could range from the iconic ones with the action figures, to ones with completely original animation, to sing-alongs, and even groovies. I'm gonna go more in depth about them to show exactly why they were quite possibly the most distinct part about the channel. These bumpers would use repurposed Hanna-Barbera toys to display what shows are playing on the channel at that moment. Later on, you'd start seeing bumpers like this for shows like Pokemon. These bumpers had a distinct style, for sometimes they would be perfectly fine, and other times they would be some of the weirdest things I'd ever seen in my fucking life, which is also just part of the aesthetic of this channel, because a lot of the other bumpers do this too. I feel like it was a great choice to do because these vintage toys really bring in the idea that this is the channel you go to watch classic vintage shows. You could even make that case for the quality of the toys themselves. Sometimes the toys would look good and sometimes they'd look bad, which could represent the fluctuating quality of the shows themselves. And sometimes the toys were just fucking odd back then. These were animated shorts that were playing between shows that would play like an even shorter episode of the original series. The three I remember seeing the most were Alligator Liberation, Soundhound, and City-e-Scape. No nigga, not that City-e-Scape. These shorts were all distinct in the execution, and all of them are very weird. Alligator Liberation, for example, doesn't use just one style of animation. It blends 2D and 3D animation, which makes it look odd. The human characters are drawn in 2D, but while the gator and the other alligators themselves are animated in 3D animation, which looks very primitive, I think is the word I'd like to use. But that's probably the best they could do with the budget they were given. Boomerang does air no ads after all. Soundhound is animated similar to South Park in the style of paper cutouts. Now, what weirds me out about this short isn't the jerky animation itself, it's the art style they decided to go for. I feel like with this type of animation, you have to go simple with the character designs, otherwise when the characters move, it's going to look jerky and weird. This short just gives off a strange vibe every time the characters are in motion. Now, of all three of these, I remember City-e-Scape being played the fucking most. Now, the animation style that they decided to use was traditional 2D animation, and the only weird part about it were the designs are quick drawn by Balooey themselves. I'm not used to seeing these niggas with regular horse proportions. That freaks me out just a little bit. But besides that, the short itself is good, and it has that weird Boomerang charm, just like the rest of these shorts did. It's just that Soundhound is a little fucking weird. There are also a couple that ran like faux infomercials, but they weren't really weird and they weren't played that much. There isn't much for me to say about this. They'd play an intro and they'd play the shit at the bottom for you to sing along with it. Next segment. Groovies is where they would either repurpose old animation from a show or they would make their own animation, make a music video. Now the amazing thing about these were the different art styles they would take on, both artistically and when it comes to the style of the video itself. The music video could either be about the show in general or a redone version of the show's intro, a way to showcase the history of the show, or it could just be music just to be music. There are so many great examples of this, like Gorilla for Sale.
We got a gorilla for sale, McGill a gorilla for sale. We got a gorilla for sale, McGill a gorilla for sale. We got a gorilla for sale, McGill a gorilla for sale. Won't ya buy him, take him, try him.
Live at Jellystone Park. Shark and that weird ass Adam Ant one.
Will be much safer. We must all get ready now.
And of course, everybody's favorite,
Me and my friends get no respect.
my personal favorite though, will always be Circles. It was based around how Hanna-Barbera used to loop the background along the characters' walking animations whenever they were having a conversation. The video played throughout alternated between footage of an episode that I can't find anywhere online of the Hanna-Barbera characters realizing that they were getting stuck in a loop and trying to figure out what the hell was going on, and footage of the Hanna-Barbera characters' walk cycles across random massive backgrounds. The song also fits on two levels, being a meta joke about how the Hanna-Barbera backgrounds used to loop. In the feel of the song itself, it makes you feel like looking back in the past, which is what this whole channel is about. So with all things I've talked about so far, you might be wondering how the downfall came about. To be truthful, the decline started happening way before the rebrand even happened. The decline began somewhere around the time when you'd find cartoons that were currently airing on Cartoon Network also airing on Boomerang. It was around this time you could see that Cartoon Network starting to treat the channel more as a place where they could dump all the cartoons that they didn't want to air, and less of a place where you can celebrate the history of cartoons. They even started airing shows that were currently on Cartoon Network's schedule, probably because they saw it as a safer option compared to airing older shows because more people would want to watch them, completely defeating the purpose of the channel as it was. So instead of better fixing the schedule around what it was originally set to do, they instead decided to rebrand it so that now it fit with the direction they were going. With the rebranded, it started to focus more on new shows and its own original shows. Nowadays, the only old cartoons you'll see on there would be the various incarnations of Scooby-Doo, Tom and Jerry, and the Looney Tunes, and occasionally a show from the 2000s. But with less of a focus on nostalgia of the cartoons themselves and now more of a focus on it just being orientated to kids, the channel loses some of its luster it originally had. Like, where are some of the classic shows that are nostalgic to people who watched the channel in the past? And even more, all the shows that are now nostalgic to kids that grew up in the 2000s. Whatever happened to Ed, Edd and Eddy and Courage and Chowder? And even the more obscure shows from back then, like Camp Lazlo and Two Stupid Dogs, but they used to air but don't air anymore. Whatever happened to all the DC animated shows? You own all of that. You have the remixes that play in between shows, but the thing is, you only make 2 of them, and they're okay, I guess, but they're nothing compared to the Groovies. The Boomerang the way it is would be serviceable if it was a different channel, and wasn't the end result of the decline of something great.